Oh, weird audio bug there, but hello everyone. My name is Strifium, and welcome back to Misfits Racing League action. It is, of course, the Monaco Grand Prix and the finale of our Monaco race week here for Misfits Racing League. And joining me, as always, for the club division, Unicorn. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellently as always. As you said, the final time we're going to see Monaco for a little while here, the end of the week, and it's been a good week. Let's hope we can finish it off with another good race here this evening.
Yeah, most definitely. Of course, taking a look at the circuit on screen now. Such a tight circuit, and if you haven't joined us this week for some racing already, it's a very unique race, a very iconic circuit, and overtaking extremely difficult here. Qualifying definitely one of the most important elements to this race. Of course, let's take a look at where we're going to be going next week, as well as where we've gone this season. We've already seen the club division go through Australia, Bahrain, Vietnam, China, the Netherlands, of course, Spain most recently last week, and now we're here in Monte Carlo for round 7. And of course, next week we move through to another fairly difficult circuit that some of these drivers may be dreading in Baku. So Azerbaijan next week, of course. Following that, Canada, then France, as things start to open up for this calendar, and then it's Austria for round 11. We have the Oceanic applications that have just begun for the MRL Oceanic division as well, so you can check that out in the Discord if you're interested in participating, well, in our Asian/Oceanic grid. Of course, they'll be kicking things off October 1st, but let's take a look at how things are going for the second half of Club Division through the rest of Season 3. It's going to be the British Grand Prix for round 12, Hungary for 13, Belgium following that with Italy, Singapore, Russia, Japan, the US, Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi rounding out this season. Let's take a look at the teams that are going to be taking to the grid. Of course, we have a couple of substitutions. It's going to be Jake in over at Ferrari. He's going to be replacing Seb, and Finn, the newest member to the grid as well, over at AlphaTauri. He's going to be replacing Wavy full-time. But of course, it's ZZ9 and Fraser for Mercedes, Alex and Jake for Ferrari now, Ben the Bear and Remco van Putten, the Dutchman, over at Red Bull, with Mito and Burke at McLaren. It's Nigel, McGeedis, and Arda for Renault, Freeware and Finn for AlphaTauri, Burke, Khan, and Alpha for Racing Point, Shenjay and Money over at Alfa Romeo, with Tom and Sever and XTXP for Haas, and Emre Ozturk and Domi rounding out this grid. And I don't know why I'm hearing the lobby start, but it shouldn't be starting just yet, but that's okay. So we'll take a look at the standings as well. Somebody may have jumped the gun, but of course ZZ9 in lead of this championship at the moment. Alex Bitto there in second, and Shenjay rounds out the top 3 with Mercedes leading the constructors, as we now jump in rather quickly into our race lobby here. And there we go. We're in. We have 16 racers on this grid. And it looks like we're going to have a clear qualifying session.
Yeah, we saw the rain come down yesterday, not in qualifying, but during the race, and it certainly threw a few people off. So I'm sure the drivers, at least for now, sighing a little bit of relief, seeing that the dry conditions are at least holding up for the time being.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I know you said qualifying absolutely pivotal in any Monaco Grand Prix, given how crucial track position is. And 18 minutes here the drivers have to set the fastest time. As no one's exiting the garage at this moment. Usually at Monaco, you see people flood out onto the track as early as they can, but already 1.5 minutes into the session, we have got no one.
Well, 16 drivers on this grid, and not a single one of them has decided to take to the pit, well, to exit this pit lane just yet. And it's curious as to why.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I would imagine that you'd want to be setting as many laps as you can, because like we said,
there's only one thing that I could think here, Unicorn, that would be causing these drivers to take a full 2 minutes to get setups in, and that is if we have a weather dynamic coming in this race. Of course, I haven't received a weather report, not sure if you have. But a couple of drivers out now. It looks like the Alpha Tower, that may be Freeware getting out first here, or it could be Finn. No, that's going to be Finn, first driver out here, and he's going to be the first driver to set a lap around the streets of Monte Carlo.
Yeah, if there is that weather, report that's saying rain will be coming, and if it's a prominent part of this race, people might switch to a wet setup, or at least adjust their dry setup to be a little bit more capable of handling any rain that comes their way during the race. And you can see everyone flooding out now onto the track. Only a few drivers left in the pit lane. And only Fraser right now on the medium compound tyre. It is a rather difficult strategy to pull off because of how difficult it is to overtake, but if everything goes your way and you are able to sort of jump a few places in the pit window as a result of the tyre choice, it can pay off, but it depends how far down you start as a result of that slower tyre.
Finn now coming through that final turn. Unicorn, he's going to be getting set to set a lap here, and he'll be the first one to do so as we ride on board with him down into turn 1. That's Sandoval, and of course he's coming up the hill, and he's invalidated already, unfortunately, on that inside curbing there. So we'll have to jump on with the next driver behind him, and that's going to be XTXP, who has fortunately not invalidated coming through turn 1.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of invalidated qualifying laps over the course of the last week. And XTXP, interestingly, they're not swinging to the right a little bit. There's that bump in the road before turn 5 that you can sometimes, out of exit of the casino corner, just swing to the right a little bit to avoid it. But you shouldn't just go straight over the bump. And he's going to set the benchmark time here, provided all goes well in the second half of his lap. Coming down into this Nouvelle chicane, another great place to invalidate if you're not completely switched on, but again, keeping it clean through there in the Haas. And Pampernick, whilst XTXP comes into the final sector, he's retired through Casino, it looks like, judging by the map, but it is going to be XTXP crossing the line with the first qualifying time. It's a 1:11.1 for the Haas driver.
Next across, I think that's going to be the Dutchman. It is a 109.2 from Remco van Putten in the Red Bull. After that, Money, a 110 flat from the Alfa Romeo. Who else has been able to set a time? Freeware, a 109.6. Tillman Sever, a 109.8. And then it's Nigel, a 109 flat. And he has really set the bar with that one there. On to provisional pole in the Renault.
Yep. Fraser as well, 110 flat on the medium tyres, as well as Alex Biddo now in third place at 109.4 for the Spaniard.
Things are heating up. You can see already from first down to 7th, we have less than a second separating those drivers, and you see Fraser there. He's on those mediums, so he's definitely got time to improve here. ZZ9 into this mix as well, a 109.938. This is looking very good here so far for this Monaco Grand Prix. Of course, only 16 drivers on the grid. Considering what we've seen this week, Unicorn, I can't say I'm too surprised. Of course, we spoke about it on Tuesday. Monaco definitely one of the races not for the faint of heart, especially after Tier 2. Saw, well, a lot of stops, a lot of different dynamics, and just a ton of rain in that race. So we'll have to see how things play out here for the club division.
Yeah, I think people sort of underestimate the complexity of Monaco. Everyone thinks it's this big procession of cars, but there's so much, especially when you're hit with weather like the guys in Tier 2 yesterday faced. It's such a difficult circuit to completely nail, not only in terms of just getting that car around unscathed, but also if you mess up your tyre strategy, that's going to cost you a huge portion of time. Shenji in the Alfa Romeo, he's coming up to Sector 3. He's looking like he's been a little bit slippery in that Alfa Romeo. He's been sliding out of a few corners, but he's kept it valid. He's kept the car undamaged. As a big slide through Raskas there. I'm wondering whether he's running at a little bit less downforce than maybe you would expect a car to run at Monaco, but it's not really hindered him so much as he's put a third fastest time in, a 109.4 from him. So without that slide, he could be on for some very quick times.
Yeah, we jumped on with Domi as Shenjie crossed the line there into P3, and Domi was on a flyer a moment ago, but he's been struggling a lot here on this lap, and he could just be trying to warm his tires, but I don't think he was. He sets a 114.5. He had a big issue through Sector 3, and here we go on an in-lap now, I think, for the Williams. We'll have to see if he's able to improve.
Coming out of that 19th final turn there, that didn't look like he was warming his tires. It did look like a twitch, so again, maybe struggling with setup there. I'm not quite sure, but a 114.5, he's definitely going to want to improve upon that.
Now, Pan Pernick in the Racing Point right now. He's retired out of the session. I'm not entirely sure if that was a retirement in the pit lane. I didn't catch anything on circuit. Really? So where was it that he had crashed?
Very early on in turn 4, so Casino. I didn't see what happened because it was right when XTXP was setting that first lap of the session. But yeah, he appeared to have binned his car out of that fast right-hander.
Finn in the Alpha Tauri now. He's on a flyer. He's just come through turn 1. He's making his way up the hill now.
Yeah, already invalidated a couple of laps in that Alpha Tauri. Hopefully he's got a little bit more luck here.
Of course, if you're just tuning in, MRL Club Division, new to a broadcast here on Fridays. This is, of course, the third time we've run this broadcast. Tell your friends, tell your family, get in here for some Monaco racing action. Of course, tomorrow we're back at it again. This time, not Monaco, Monza, the iconic Temple of Speed, where we're going to be doing a 100% endurance race. And I'm very excited for that. We've got quite a good grid looking to be lining up for that one. And it is Finn coming out down through that tunnel into the chicane. He's invalidated once again, but he has allowed money by. It's very important to let drivers by, especially when you've invalidated like that. I believe it's Remco Van Putten, who I thought may have been on an outlap, or excuse me, a flyer, but it appears he may be on, well, some kind of in-lap. Not entirely sure. We'll see if he wants to start a new lap or if he comes into the box here. And he's going to box. Who is flying that we can jump on with? Anyone near the line right now? It looks like there might be a Mercedes about to cross. It's going to be Fraser. Currently P9. What's he able to do on the soft compound tires? His first time on the mediums. He improves into pole position. Unicorn a 108.868. Absolutely rapid out of that Mercedes. Great job from the Danish driver, Fraser.
Yeah, Alpha, he's going to set his first time of the session on 112 flat for the Racing Point, so a little bit off the pace at the moment. Looked like he struggled through that third sector, but Fraser, he's not hanging around in that Mercedes. He's got time for improvement as well. As his teammate, ZZ9, he cuts off 6/10. That bumps him up to 4th place, 109.3, so the pair of Mercedes right now doing excellent stuff on track, both on the two front rows of the grid. Shenjie, he's just starting another fly. He made a few mistakes in his previous attempt, and it was still a very impressive time that put him into 3rd. Now down in 5th. Can he improve? Freeway, he's flying as well in that Alpha Tauri, just ahead of Shenjie, down through the Grand Hotel hairpin in his Alpha Tauri. Teammate Finn still yet to set a time, the only driver still yet to set a time that's capable of doing so. And that's an invalidation from Freeway, just taking a little bit too much of the curbing down in turn 10.
Now, Shenjie on that flyer. Of course, Freer and Shenjie teammates in Tier 1, but not today. And his mission is going to be, well, setting a faster lap than that AlphaTauri currently ahead of him on circuit. DRS wide open now coming out of that final turn. What's the time going to be crossing the line? It's pole position, a 108.865. 3 thousandths of a second ahead of Fraser, and that's the Alfa Romeo of Shenji onto provisional pole position.
Yeah, that is an absolutely insane gap between the two front runners right now. 3 thousandths of a second, like you said. I'm sure Fraser is not happy with that. It looks like he's already coming out of the pit lane to go again in that Mercedes. As Remco Van Putten appears to be on another flyer. As the AlphaTauri of Finn, I'm not sure whether he's crashed or he's just getting out of the way there, but very slow in that second sector.
Yeah, Van Putten coming out of that tunnel into this very unique chicane where we've seen a lot of overtaking this week coming out of that tunnel on that inside. Very easy to hook that back left tire coming through there as well if you're very tight wheel to wheel with somebody, and we saw it a couple times through the 3 races we've already gone through over this week. But now it's Remco Van Putten looking to be the first to try and challenge that pole position here from 5th in the Red Bull. What's the time going to be? Currently improving a 109.2. It's pole position from the Dutchman, a 108.632, 2/10 up on his 2 main competitors there in Shenji and Fraser, and it's the Dutchman on pole in the Red Bull. And where have we heard that statement before? You know, we've had the Red Bull on pole here before, if I'm not mistaken, in Danny Rick, but I could be completely off. Or at the very least, the Red Bull's winning these races. One of their strongest campaigns, and, well, the Dutchman putting the reality into the virtual space today.
Yeah, we'd love to see, well, Danny Rick performing a little bit better as of recent, but like you said, Red Bull around here, their pit strategies really pay off, and whether we'll see that tonight with people's strategies, we've seen it over the last couple of days that you can gain an incredible amount of places if you not only have a good strategy but also avoid the inevitable few collisions that will happen around Monaco. As both the Mercedes right now on flyers. Fraser, though, he's invalidated, not happy with what he was doing, and he's completely cut the chicane out. So ZZ9, now the only Mercedes on a flyer, as well as Nigel, who's currently sitting in 4th place. Down into the chicane for ZZ9. He, unlike his teammate, has kept it valid. And out of Sector 2, he's just over, or just under 1/10 up on his previous best, so that might be enough to just leapfrog Alex Biddo. But other than that, right now it will just be 5th for the Mercedes. He comes across that DRS line, his wing is wide open, and across the line is found some time in the final sector there, and that's 4th for ZZ9.
Money coming through the chicane now. He's just come out that tunnel, and he's in that Alfa Romeo. He's looking to push further into this grid, and just had a little bit of a touch with the wall, but he's 2/10 up coming through Sector 2 now. Through this very fast section now through into Rascas. And we'll have to see if he's able to improve or if he decides to come into the box. And it's definitely going to be into the box for him. He definitely struggled through Sector 3 there. Alpha, meanwhile, in that racing point, he's looking to improve on his 112 flat. He's on the soft compound tires once again, and he's coming down through into that hairpin where we've seen so many of these cars in races get congested. And we'll have to see how things go for these guys come through this this race start. He's invalidated, it would seem, as well.
Yeah, Mito's just had a collision with the wall out of turn 1. Also, Nigel invalidated his previous attempt, now out on what appears to be another flyer, and he's going to try and challenge Remco Van Putten for that pole position. Remco Van Putten has retired from this session, so he is not going to be improving upon that 108.6 that is currently 2/10 faster than anyone else's attempt here around Monaco. And Nigel, he is currently poised to improve. He's scraping the wall a little bit there, but out of the second sector, he was 3/10 improved. A big slide. He's lost an end plate. Has this final sector cost him that pole position?
Yeah, he isn't going to be able to outdo Remco. If he was able to keep it clean through Sector 3 there, he may have just done so. His current time, that 109 flat, and we saw him nearly 4/10 up through Sector 2. So, definitely the pace is there. but he hasn't been able to pull that together through that third sector. And of course, the consistency through all of the sectors is what allowed Van Putten onto pole position. Of course, there are a couple of other drivers who may be able to undo that. Shenjie Fraser currently heading out.
Yeah, Alex Bedo, he's just invalidated his attempt to try and dethrone Remco Van Putten. He is going to go for one last attempt, though. He's got time for one more lap here in that Ferrari. His teammate, Jake, currently in 10th. He's on an out lap as well. With just under 30 seconds to go here in qualifying. We've still got a lot of drivers capable of taking that top spot.
Well, Alex finding a little bit of time through Sector 1. Now coming through the hairpin. Like some traffic up ahead in this tunnel going quite slowly there. That's ZZ9 pulled off the racing line there. Good from him to see that. Of course, coming down into the chicane for Alex in the Ferrari right now. What's he going to do through Sector 2? He's currently down. Does he have a lot of time to find, though, here through Sector 3? That's the big question. What does he have in the bank coming through into this final turn? DRS wide open now. Coming down the straight. What's it going to be? He improves, but it's not good enough to move him any further ahead. Of course, Fraser and Shenjie both now have started laps.
Fraser coming across the line is a 2/10th improvement for the Mercedes. That does put him ahead of Shenjie, but he's just missed out on first by an absolutely minuscule margin. Not quite the small gap that we saw separating him and Shenjie, though, as ZZ9 crosses with a 109 flat. That bumps Nigel down a place, although Shenjie in the Alfa Romeo, he's in the final sector. Can he take the top spot here in that Alfa Romeo? DRS wide open. He looks a little bit more in control of that car than he did a minute ago. It's a 108.4 from the Alfa Romeo to take the top spot for the time being. Does anyone have an answer to that lap?
ZZ9 right now, currently coming out of that tunnel into the chicane. He is flying. And he is, I think, the closest flyer within striking distance. His teammate Fraser not too far behind him, currently on an in-lap. And there's a variety of drivers making their way by that other Mercedes. But of course, it's going to be ZZ9 coming into the penultimate turn now. What is the time going to be here? Currently a 109 flat, looking to improve. No improvement from ZZ9. Could we see him carry through on this final lap? No, he's taken that flag, and it's a variety of drivers entering the pit lane now. Currently, Mito on a flyer, just ahead of Domi.
Yeah, Mito, he's just been dropped a place. Freeware going a little bit faster, a 109.2 from the Alpha Tauri, so that's at least Mito's goal to knock a couple of tenths off of his previous best. And he hasn't quite managed it 1/10 quicker than his previous best. Like I said, Domi, he's going to cross the line in that Williams, a 109.7, that's a 7/10 improvement. And it just puts him ahead of Jake for 10th place.
That's going to wrap up our qualifying session. You can see there's some AI cars being listed on the timing tower. Not entirely sure what really prompts that bug, but unfortunately it is there. But we are going to go through this grid in just a moment's time. What a qualifying session it was. Unfortunately, Pan Pernick, the only driver here in the session, not able to get a time on the board. However, Shenjie on pole position here in the Alfa Romeo. 108.476 was the pole time. Remco Van Putten lining up next to him there in second in the Red Bull. And it's the two Mercedes, 3 and 4 for Fraser and ZZ9 respectively, with Nigel in the Renault. Rounding off your top 5. Money there in 6th, Bido in 7th, Freeware in 8th, Mito in 9th, Domi in 10th, rounding off the top 10. Jake in 11th, Tillman Sever 12th, XTXP 13th, Finn in 14th with Alpha in 15th there, and Pan Pernick rounding out the 16 drivers taking to Monaco. Of course, Pan Pernick there not able to set that time due to some kind of crash or collision through the qualifying session, of course. Now, all of these drivers finalizing setups here ahead of this race, and it appears Shenjie has had a disconnection. So hopefully he'll be able to get back into his car. But if not, it's very unfortunate connection issues putting him out of this race. Could be a likely outcome as well.
Yeah, it looks like he may have lost connection. It's not online on Steam, which usually isn't the greatest sign for a driver.
Most definitely could have been on his end as well. So we will have to see. Of course, we will have the formation lap as well. Car is on the grid, so we'll see if he's able to get into it as it has started the formation lap here.
Now, looking at the tyres, obviously all of those in the top 10 on the soft compound tyres, but there are a few drivers, 4 to be exact, on the mediums. And one thing I do want to touch on here is if we get an early safety car that prompts a early pit stop from some of these drivers. The two Mercedes, Fraser and ZZ9, being so close to one another on the track, that could cause double stacking issues or cost one of them the optimal pit stop. As Freeware and TM and Sever appear to have come together on the formation lap, which sends them both to the front of the grid.
Curious to see how they came together, considering there's 3 cars separating them on the starting grid right now, but very unique.
Yeah, Remco van Putten in that Red Bull, he looks a little bit slidey. It looks like he's got no grip right now. Obviously cold tyres, and that's the whole point of the formation lap, to get a little bit of warmth into that rubber, but not looking too controlled right now. But he did have a very consistent qualifying compared to the likes of Shenjie, who we did see slide quite aggressively at some points during that qualifying session.
The curious question will be is if Shenjie is able to return to his car at the start of this race. Of course, Pan Pernick is going to be bringing up the rear of your grid here in Monaco, not able to set a time in qualifying, so we'll have to see what kind of pace he has. We've seen him race through Club Division previously with excellent speed, and he's starting this race on the mediums. But of course, Unicorn, it is time for racing.
Indeed it is. The light again. It does appear that Shenjie's car has left the grid, but everyone else, they've been delayed by the start. But it is now ZZ9 coming under a little bit of pressure from the Renault of Nigel. Alex Biddo as well. He's got past money through the first turn. That Ferrari has made that move very convincingly as well. Meanwhile, his teammate Jake, he's up one position. And the two Racing Points, they're going side by side right now down into turn 5. No contact for them, and the starters have all made it round as well. And that's the AlphaTauri of Finn, I do believe. He's just dived up the inside of both of those pink Racing Points, and he's got the move done on the pair of them. Meanwhile, up at the front though, no position changes for the top 5. And a very clean start to this race.
Yeah, and for those of you wondering what's going to happen with Shenjie, as a result of his car being AI and in lead of this race, it was given the opportunity to start this race early, being under AI control. It's a very unfortunate glitch in the game, but as a result, we are going to be more than likely removing Shenjie's vehicle from this race. So, given the current grid, you have Remco van Putten leading this race. Of course, if Shenjie does have control of his car, well, ideally he should just slow down in order to not get disqualified from this race, but I don't believe he is here with us at this time.
Yeah, something's happening with
Remco van Putten catching him at a rapid rate, and I do believe majority of this grid will be able to do so. There is an AI. It is above, of course, the default AI setting, but it isn't so far out of reach that these drivers cannot catch. So I do believe we'll see the majority of this grid pass Shenjie by the end of this race. But as a result of him being in pole position, he got that unique AI race start. Hate to see it, but Not much that can be done about it. Domi and Sever could be having a look coming out of that tunnel right now into the chicane. He's looking at Domi, but nothing's doing. Meanwhile, Alpha, wheel to wheel with Finn into the chicane. And who's going to get the better out of that exchange? Right now, it looks like Finn's maintained that lead in 13th position, but Alpha on the inside, a little bit of contact there. Doesn't look like either of them took any damage. Shenjay now getting overtaken by Remco Van Putten, and then that back marker is going to cause some issues here as Fraser's wheel to wheel with the Alfa Romeo now coming up the hill.
There we go. So Shenjay is finally back in control of that Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, curious to see what the stewards will do about this post-race. Of course, still encountering new issues weekly. Not much that can be done, but Shenjay now in full control of that car. You can see the X has disappeared on screen. ZZ9 as we're on board with him now, looking to chase down that Alfa Romeo. You can see the timing grid has disappeared as a result of Shenjay rejoining this session.
Indeed, and it's the two front runners right now, Remco Van Putten and Fraser, who have not only gained a position because of Shenjay's unfortunate bug, but also they've gained a lot of time to the cars behind. You can see that gap is rather large compared to other gaps on this grid right now. And with DRS enabled as well, they can further extend their lead, as Shenjay does not have DRS on the cars ahead, but he has just set the fastest sector 3, so now that he's back in control of that car, he is definitely not hanging around.
Well, and Penn Pernix now had a disconnect as well, and it looks like that's going to cost him a little bit. Hopefully he's able to get back into this session right now, but we're just watching this battle right now for lead of this race, and there's a bit of a train that's formed as a result of Remco Van Putten in the lead right now. Shenjay there in third, back in control of his car after the very unique start for his race, but of course it's Alex Bitto at the back of this train, and everybody's still within that 1 second of one another here on lap 4. No full safety car, no VSC. You like to see it. We haven't had too much drama yet here in this race, and it looks like it might just be a battle of the minds and strategy here in this one. Undercutting, very powerful, as we saw Samidiot yesterday versus Brownie. He came in on that undercut, and he was able to get a major gap ahead of Brownie and come out in some fresh air. So we'll see what some of these drivers decide to do, as there's just a huge snake flowing through this Monte Carlo street circuit right now. And Tillman Sever within half a second of Domi as well in that fight for the final points position. So there's little battles forming all over this circuit right now, and things can change in an instant as Domi jumps into the pit lane. That's going to put Tillman Sever into 10th position, but it's Fraser now who had a look at Remco Van Putten into turn 1, but not quite able to get the move done, and he's still hunting down the Dutchman. And we'll have to see what that Mercedes can do here over the course of, well, the next 34 laps.
Yeah, Shenjay's catching them pretty quickly as well. Now that he's regained control of that Alfa Romeo, he's really gaining some serious time on the pair of cars ahead of him. But right now, no position changes to speak of. At the moment, again, we said it before and we'll say it again, Monaco, incredibly difficult to overtake around. As Finn gets past Pan Pernix after what I believe is a pit stop for some fresh hards there for the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, Pan Pernix still not in control of his car. He's similar issue to Shenjay, has that disconnect. You hate to see it, but XTXP's caught him up quite rapidly. I think the gap was 7 seconds not too long ago. Now it's already dropped down. Now we have Nigel. He's coming into the pit lane, and he's looking to get off some softs here, and it's a very curious strategy from him. He was in a solid position. We'll have to see where he drops out, but it's going to be a ways back right now. XTXP on the AI-controlled car of Pan Pernix. There's a big issue, and he is into the wall through the tunnel. Of course, ghosting disabled here in these races. You need to take care when trying to overtake that AI, and he has decided to retire out of this session, so he is fed up with that. Very unfortunate to see that level of dedication. Of course, Shenjay right now in third position within 1 minute of Fraser, or 1 second, excuse me, of Fraser, and he has now extended that gap to ZZ9 behind him to plus 1 second, and he'll be looking to, of course, extend that gap as best he can while maintaining station with these front runners.
Yeah, and Fraser seems to be sort of yo-yoing between the two of being close to the rear of Remco Van Putten and being close to being overtaken by Shenjay, as Alex Bido appears to have overtaken Money through the Nouvelle Chicane. He's up into 5th now. As
Money's
Money
chosen to
comes
pit.
to the
He's chosen to pit there. I imagine that overtake was the indicator for him, perhaps. I don't know what these drivers are planning on doing, but you can see Nigel pitted off softs. He got onto medium compact tires, and who is that? That is Finn, the AlphaTauri in the wall, and he is looking to let these fast movers by and get back going, but he has now dropped significantly here, as Tillman Sever has opted to come into the pit lane as well to get some new tires. And it just would appear that a lot of these drivers on these soft compound tires, perhaps as a result of the qualifying session that came before us here in this race, maybe giving these drivers a little bit more wear than anticipated, getting off these softs a little earlier. Of course, Money went onto the hards, Nigel onto the mediums, and it's still Fraser, well, Remco threw down to freeware all on these soft compound tires. Everybody else opting for those mediums or hards.
Yeah, I don't know about Money. I didn't catch his pit stop, but Tillman Sever down at the Haas garage definitely received a new front wing, so they're separated enough that I don't believe they came together, but maybe an unexpected trip to the waters. Nigel appears to have overtaken Alpha for 9th place. Again, in that Nouvelle Chicane, we've seen that one of the most popular overtaking spots on Monaco. One of the only places where it's realistically possible to get a F1 car past another.
Yeah, one thing to talk about here, Freeware currently hunting down Alex Bido. They're still on softs, one another, but of course they have Jake on those mediums approaching. And Freeware is caught between the two Ferraris right now, and there could be a little bit of team dynamics at play. Of course, Jake, the newest driver into that full-time slot over there, filling in for Seb. So we'll see if he's able to put some team dynamics into play over at Ferrari. I don't think we've seen much of that this season from the Scuderia, and well, let's be real, we haven't seen much of it over the past few seasons as well. Sucks to say.
And yeah, Jake, though, his strategy could really pay dividends for him. 7-lap on mediums, they're good for a while, whereas these softs only going to be good for another few laps at the most. And that is Remco Van Putten. He is into the pit lane, as is Shenjay. The two Mercedes, though, the pair of them staying out, that could cost them if they both need to come into the pit at the end of this lap. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare. Fraser is using overtake out of turn 1. The rest of the front runners who have just come in opting for the medium tyres, and it looks like Alex Bido has jumped Shenjay in the pit lane. Whether Shenjay, I don't think he had wing damage, but he's lost a serious amount of time to that Ferrari.
Alex is going to be very happy about that. And right now, wheel to wheel, Alex and Money up the hill, and it was Alex and him. Money has also jumped Shenjay as his teammate. He's on those hards, but Alex had to do a little bit of battling with his, with Shenjay's teammate there. Fortunately for him, able to stick ahead of Money. Of course, Alex not as much temperature into those tires as Money might have, as he's been on these hards for a couple laps already.
Yeah, Freeware as well. He's currently sitting in 3rd place, and he still has the sister Ferrari, Jake, behind him. He's definitely keeping pace with those soft tires, but Freeware sticking out, whereas Fraser, he's onto medium tires. So we're interested to see where the Mercedes, whether the overcut actually, he is attempting here, will pay off. Remco Van Putten just coming down the start-finish straight. He will beat Fraser out, but it looks like he's going to be the only person to do so. So Fraser's strategy working out pretty nicely for him. He's 2 seconds down compared to Remco Van Putten, so not ideal, but come the end of this race, as that is the AlphaTauri of Finn, again off in the turn 4, that is Casino.
Ooh, light tap there from Shenji on the rear of his teammate. That's Money in P7 ahead of him, and Money's on those hards versus Shenji on these mediums, and Shenji going to have a little bit more pace in those tires at the present moment. Of course, not as much temperature in those tires just yet, perhaps, but we'll see what happens coming through this tunnel here. Could be some team orders. What's going to happen? Shenji did start this race on pole position. There we go. He gets through into 7th position, coming out down into the chicane. And now we go and jump on to Jake, as Freeware has opted to jump into the pit lane, and Jake on these mediums has now put himself into lead of this race in the Ferrari, as ZZ9 has also come in for the mediums. We'll have to see where he comes out here in comparison to those drivers that have undercut him. Remco Van Putten, the driver who was leading for majority of this race, has now slotted himself back out into 2nd, so the strategy doing well for him, but Fraser's made out like a bandit. He's into 3rd position on 1 lap, fresher medium compound tires than our race leader. Well, our net race leader, excuse me. Let me clarify that. Of course, Jake yet to stop in this race.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see when he comes in, whether he might take advantage of a safety car if one is to crop up, or whether he's just going to have to one stop for probably soft tires, if you can get those mediums far enough along for the one stop. Definitely possible around Monaco. Now, Freeware on those fresh medium compound tires, now behind the Alfa Romeo of Money. We've seen Shenji pass Money on fresh mediums, but the difference here is Freeware is not Money's teammate, so he's not going to be allowed to pass on any team orders.
Yeah, and one thing we saw with Freeware yesterday in Tier 1, he wants to be at the front. He does not like sitting here in the midfield. I think sitting here in the midfield frustrates him, because we saw him come together into Rackety coming out into that chicane a few times yesterday. But of course, he's back today racing in the AlphaTauri once again, except this time a completely different rival ahead of him in Money. And now here's the move, a little bit of a tap onto the back right, but not able to get the move done there, but he's looking for it coming up the hill. And Money, a little bit less speed in that car right now, but he is going to be going a little deep. Freeware looks for the move back around the inside. Oh my god, that was so risky from Freeware. He looks again to the inside. Money closes the door. And patience, my friends, is a virtue. There are places to get these moves done, and right now, Freeware not having a lot of it right now. He's looking for those risks on the inside of the Alfa Romeo. And, well, the lesson hasn't been learned, it would seem. Of course, right now through this tunnel, overtake in full swing. How's it going to go coming down into the chicane? We've seen how this could go before with Freeware. He gives Money a little bit of space on that inside. Money holding well right now, coming through in Sector 2. On the outside, very, very tough place to go wheel to wheel. Both drivers trying to give one another space. But, not a place to see a lot of overtaking here. We'll see what happens, as this is a very intense battle right now. Freeware showing a lot of pace in that AlphaTauri. But Money holding very well right now, and this is costing Freeware a lot of time to these guys ahead.
Yeah, and like you were saying, definitely putting his car and the car of Money as well a little bit of risk. But if he had made the move on the outside of turn 3, it would have been beautiful as they come up. He's looking for it again in that AlphaTauri. And in the inside into Casino, and that is contact between the two.
And that's a safety car.
Are flying. Interesting stuff, but that's caused a safety car.
Very odd as to why that may have caused a safety car. It was just a little bit of debris on circuit, but what an interesting and unique fight here. Monaco isn't teaching these racers, or at the very least Racer, the lesson that it should, and that is patience. There are areas to overtake, and there are winning lines and losing lines here around the Principality of Monaco. And here, as we're under safety car conditions, I'm sure Freeware won't be too disappointed, because now he'll be able to get that wing changed over that he decided to put into the rear of the car. Of course, lots of unique battles that we've seen here throughout this race. You hate to see the contact, but it's been a fairly clean race up until this point. 13 laps without a safety car.
Yeah, and Freeware, you've got to admire someone for trying something like that, but it isn't the place to overtake, especially when it's failed one lap and you try it again the next. You know, you can be creative around a lot of circuits, and you can get through in Casino, but that's not the way to go about it. And he avoided contact the first time around, but the second time around, not so lucky, and he's paying the price here with a fresh wing. And that's going to be Jake and Domi making positions on the pair of them. Oh, wait, Domi's coming to the pits as well. But they're going to be all bunched up again, and this is going to put Freeware in even more traffic.
Remco Van Putten will be happy that he's in lead of this race right now on some mediums, but of course, a couple of drivers getting some new tires. Freeware, he's slotted out in 10th, so he's still in these points, and he'll be looking to hunt down this grid, but he hasn't been having a lot of success getting past that Alfa Romeo, and now the Alfa Romeo has made out like a bandit here on some fresh mediums as well.
Yeah, the other Alfa Romeo, Shenjie, he's going to regain that time he lost during the pit stop earlier that cost him the place to Alex Bido. Obviously still behind in terms of track position, but now the gap is going to be a lot smaller. One thing to note about safety car restarts around Monaco is that most of the grid, once Remco Van Putten puts his foot down to restart this race, most of the grid will not be on the start-finish straight. Instead, they'll be around turn 18 or even turn 17 if they're far enough back in Raskas, where they're going to be much slower, and it really spaces out the front from the back of this grid. So we're interested to see how the restart is managed. And another, you got to remember Remco Van Putten. We've said a lot about him. An excellent defensive driver at the wheel of that Red Bull, and around a circuit it's difficult to overtake in Monaco. Really plays to his strength, especially considering he's in that first position.
Well, we'll have to see how many laps this safety car goes around here. Take a look at the position changes. Of course, you can see there Remco, Fraser, and Alex Bido have been the winners here, as they are currently at the top three. Remco leading this race, Fraser there in second, and Bido's up 4 positions there in third. Shenjie has dropped off of pole position. Of course, we saw at the beginning of this race, Shenjie did have a disconnection issue, putting the AI far out in front of Remco Van Putten, but of course Remco able to catch that AI before it became well, an issue of drama, I suppose. But of course, ZZ9 there in 5th, Tillman Sever in 6th. But ZZ9's dropped off 1 position. Tillman Sever's had a good race. He's up 6 positions, as is Jake, up 4. But Nigel, Money, Freeware, and Domi have been the loss leaders here, as they're all down positions. Pan Pernick up 4 positions. Alpha up 2. We'll see if Pan Pernick's back. He is not, so that car currently being controlled by AI. And Finn has been well, he's been struggling here, I think, in Monaco. He said to me before the race, of all the races I need to make my debut, and Monaco's got to be the worst. So no harm done from him. I don't think he's impeded too many drivers here in this race. And Monaco, definitely one of those circuits that requires a lot of work in practice.
Yeah, and he has shown a lot of good racecraft. We've seen him have a few issues through Casino, and we've just seen him park it at the side, letting everyone by. And, you know, that's what you want to see from a racer. You know, they made a mistake, it happens, but when that mistake has a problem was when he rejoined the track dangerously. And it's easy to do around Monaco, but he's managed to keep himself, like I said, out of the way of the drivers who haven't made that mistake, and that's all you can ask for in that situation. So maybe not his strongest track, but a good impression, shall we say, at least for his racecraft. As we'll see, the grid has all caught up pretty much, so whether the safety car will come in this lap, fingers crossed, and we can get this race back underway on the 16th lap out of 39. So still a good chunk of the race to go. There we are, there is race control telling us the safety car will come in at the end of this lap. And that means Remco Van Putten right now, the de facto safety car for the time being, until he's able to restart this race.
Very intense restarts we've seen here through Monaco. This entire grid essentially getting this rolling restart, and Remco Van Putten in charge of pacing that field. in that Red Bull at the moment, and we'll have to see when he hits that throttle. It looks like he's just holding it, and he's away. Oh, no, he's given a little bit of a brake check there. He might have been throttle locked, but now there's been a big issue in this grid. Freeware's taking a 5-second penalty. Van Putten away. You saw the jump on the brakes and then the excessive, well, he went on that throttle off the brake, and now it's away here, and it looks like there's already been an overtake. Jake on Tillman, several wheel to wheel coming up the hill right now. They're still side by side, and that's the Haas out in front for the moment, and that's the Renault of Nigel having a look at these two. Meanwhile, Freeware also very close to the rear of Money, and we've seen these two do battle, and now Freeware ahead of the Alfa Romeo down into the hairpin. Side by side, Freeware stuck on the inside. There is the Alfa Romeo able to get through and by, and he is. Very nicely done there from Money on the switchback with the AlphaTauri. Meanwhile, Shenjay currently less than a second behind Alex Biddo. And they're coming out of the tunnel right now, and it doesn't look like there's any volley for position in the front five at the moment. But what an exciting restart that was, with some of the action that we saw through Sector 1.
Yeah, and Jake did very well to keep that clean, because that restart where Remco Van Putten backed everyone up a little bit, it really allowed Jake to take full advantage. They were almost 3 wide himself, Tim and Senna, and CZ9 as well down into turn 1. CZ9 now over 1.5 seconds clear of the pair behind him, but
Nigel on the inside of Jake into turn 1. He doesn't even cut the curbing, and it looks like he made it clear through in front of the Ferrari there, and he did into 7th position. And what a very quick move there from the Renault. And right now it's Money on the rear of that Ferrari, and he's looking for position as well.
Yeah, those hards do not look like they're paying off right now for Jake. Maybe come the end of this race, they will be, but as of right now, he is losing more positions than he definitely would like off of this safety car restart. For the front though, the leaders have sort of spaced themselves out a little bit.
Nigel coming out of the tunnel wheel to wheel. That's going to be Tillman Sever on the inside. Nigel not quite able to get through there, and Tillman Sever holds 6 for now. Freeware has taken a 3-second time penalty after multiple warnings. And there's just this big train right now. Freeware, though, very tight to the rear of Money still, and he has been through this entire race. Meanwhile, up at the front, Remco Van Putten still in lead right now, but he's holding back Fraser, who's less than half a second away, and Alex Biddo is in that mix as well. DRS now enabled here on lap 19, and you can see Nigel still quite close to the rear of that Haas and P6, and Tillman Sever going to be needing to do a lot to defend here. And one thing that I've noticed from Nigel here, he's been kind of sliding and drifting through that first turn, and very neat movement there from the Renault, but it might cost him some tire life and some exit speed, but we'll have to see if that's something that he continues to do here. He could be feeling, of course, the wear on these 10-lap old mediums. A lot of drivers now getting to that 10-lap mark on these mediums. Remco, Biddo, Shenjay, and of course Nigel, and we have a few drivers below that on the mediums, and a couple drivers above on hards as well.
Yeah, the tyre situation shouldn't play too much of a factor. I shouldn't think at this stage of the race whether these guys on the mediums decides to opt for soft at the end of the race, whereas the likes of Tim and Senna, he's definitely good till the checkered flag. But it is Fraser right on the gearbox of Remco Van Putten, as well as Shenjay. He's right behind Alex Biddo. This fight for the podium positions is not going away anytime soon, and Alex Biddo, he's got DRS on Fraser, and that's allowed him to keep Shenjay at bay as the 4 of them run up the hill.
Shenjay showing a lot of speed right now through this first sector. He's quite close to the Spaniard, and Alex Biddo going to have to defend now that 3rd position, and that's going to lose him some time to these front runners. But of course, this is a big train of battles, and I think everybody's going to be kind of stunted for getting any time ahead here, because these drivers just aren't giving any room to breathe for one another.
Yeah, ZZ9's catching up as well. He's now within 1 second of the lights of Shenjay, and Alex Biddo, he's just received a 3-second time penalty for cutting a little bit of that 10th turn through the chicane, and he's also lost a bit of time to the cars ahead. Fraser now so close to Remco Van Putten, but getting close at the wrong spots can actually cost you time, because you have to avoid contact, and now he's actually fallen a little bit back.
I think he might have taken damage. I think he might have taken damage. I think he's missing that front right, and he is. He's missing the front right end plate there, and that's going to cost him major, especially here around Monaco right now. Alex Bido, wheel-to-wheel with him coming up the hill. Alex Bido on the outside right now. They're wheel-to-wheel still. You can see the fronts at the rears there for the Ferrari, and you can see the struggles that's coming out of that Mercedes right now, and it's Alex who's just very hungry for that P2 position. Unfortunately, he's currently plagued by that rev glitch. Can't ride on board with him. But Shenjie on the rear of him as well, and these two have caught up with Fraser monumentally, and that has allowed the Dutchman to pull out a 1 second gap. And of course, Remco van Putten, no stranger to solid defenses here, and one of the best defenders in the business. I imagine him being in lead of this race right now has got everybody concerned.
Absolutely, and Alex Villa there really showing how you go side by side around Monaco. Made his intentions clear, backed out when he realized that it wasn't a profitable endeavor, and that's resulted in him still being able to chase Fraser with a fully intact front wing. And
yeah, battle for the lead unfolding right now, but it's still freeware within 2/10 just a moment ago of Jake, and he was looking for a move, but we're going to have to jump back on over to what's happening in the fight for this P2 position, because it's going to be the Ferrari of Alex here, and we've seen it so far in this race. Fraser struggling with that front right end plate missing, and coming up through here is where we almost saw it last time around, and Shenjie isn't really giving Alex a lot of room for error here either. So if he does take a run on Fraser, he better be sure it's going to work, because he's going to have Shenjie right on his gearbox there. Just as we see coming through into this hairpin, Shenjie has ZZ9 on his rear as well, and that's going to be good for the Mercedes squad to know that regardless of what happens, there's a Mercedes at the rear keeping these guys in check.
yeah, freeware just tried to make a move through Casino on Jake, and he overcooked the rear a little bit, and that forced him into the wall. I don't know whether he was already damaged, but now Money past Nigel in the tunnel. They're side by side going down into the chicane. Money defending for all he's worth, and he's kept ahead of the Renault of Nigel for now.
Yeah, Money's been defending very well here. We'll have to see what Nigel's able to do. He's had a big slide out there, and we'll see if he took damage. He didn't, so very fortunate for the Renault. Could be, of course, a connection thing causing us to see that. But Nigel has opted to jump into the pit lane, get off of these medium compound tires, and now Alex Bido still so tight to the rear of that Mercedes. He's looking at him once again. Fraser, no room to breathe. And now Jake has retired out of the session in the Ferrari. Into turn one, it would appear, and we have a yellow flag there in Sandoval. We'll have to see if there's anything that comes out of that, like a safety car here. There hasn't even been a VSC deployed, and perhaps the marshal's able to get that car pulled back into the pit lane, but it's going to be the Racing Point flying through there now. We'll take a look on with Nigel. See the car there just briefly. There in the wall.
It's interesting to me because it looked like his rear left, which was the wheel that was come off of the car, and that's an interesting one to lose, especially through turn one. Must have had a huge spin or something to cause that, but it's unfortunate for the Ferrari. His teammate currently sitting in third place, still eagerly hunting Fraser ahead of him, who's still suffering that wing damage. We've got two very, very fast drivers behind him, as well as a teammate right now.
Nigel wheel to wheel. He's on fresh softs, and he's now overtaken Alpha down out of the tunnel into the chicane, and he's on these soft compound tires. Could he be trying to stretch these tires to the end? I don't know. 15 laps from this point on is going to be a lot to ask, and these drivers all ahead of him, although on those harder and more worn tires, I don't know if the softs are going to have enough life in him for this to be warranting to go on those softs. But then again, he may not have had another set of tires. We'll take a look at the stops we've seen here on the grid so far. Nigel's had to stop 3 times. Anyone ahead of him? 2 or 1. So he's been on the back foot throughout this race. But speaking of back foot right now, Fraser is definitely on the back foot as Remco van Putten has pulled off 3.4 seconds, and Alex and Shenjie just hunting him down. But I think Alex has had to pull off a little bit here because Shenjie is still quite close.
Yeah, Shenjie has a lot of speed in that Alfa Romeo. It looked like he tried to have a little look around the outside going into the chicane, not making it a big lock-up from the Alfa Romeo, but they're continuing to keep the racing clean, and right now they just need to sort of not work together, but keep their battling to a minimum so that they can do it in front of the Mercedes rather than behind it, because right now they're costing each other time, and that's giving Fraser a little bit of breathing room that they really shouldn't be allowing him to have with that damaged front wing.
Yeah, and another driver to look at here. We're watching this battle unfold through this entire race for these podium positions, but Money has been having a stellar drive in that Alfa Romeo. He's been defending very well. He's been keeping patient. We saw him have a move on Tillman. He pulled back off. He's biding his time. He's waiting for that Haas to make a mistake, and he's been within a second of that Haas for some time now. And I've been very much enjoying Money's race from the booth here, and we'll have to see where he finishes things off. But Tillman Sever under threat right now. This could be it. This could be what we were waiting for. You see a little bit of a lift there from the Alfa Romeo, wanting to be patient, but a dive up the inside, and there's Tillman. Not able to do much there, as Money just with a straight shot down the inside, a very clean overtake, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how it's done.
Yeah, meanwhile, up in the fight for P2, DRS again, this time Alex Bedo, he's got a little bit more of a gap to Shenjie, allowing him to sort of go a little bit more aggressive on the Mercedes and up the inside through turn 1. He's made the move. Can Shenjie follow him through here? He's looking to try and make the move through turn 3. He's not going to have the run he needs. Now, Alex Bedo cleared from that damaged Mercedes. He's up into second, and he really needs to use this time to get away and separate himself, not from Fraser, but realistically Shenjie in the Alfa Romeo, who's on an identical strategy to him right now. And ZZ9 is actually really well into this fight now. He is very capable of taking advantage of any mistakes that Shenjie makes trying to pass ZZ9's teammate Fraser there in that other Mercedes.
And one thing to note here, Money has taken a second out of these top 5 right now in the last lap. He got by Tillman. Tillman was holding him up for so long on those hards, and now you can see Money. The gap was 5.5 when he overtook the Haas. Now it's already down to 4.4, and it's dropping. And right now, Shenjie with a wheel-to-wheel look on Fraser through Raskas right now. They are locked up. Shenjie with a very, very risky move there. Fraser holding the inside, and that is what we like to see. It's tight, clean, risk-taking moves, but still, they come out of it, and they're able to carry on, and there's no safety cars deployed, and it's what we love to see, but still, Shenjie hunting him down outside of turn 1 now as they come up the hill, and this is where we saw it done earlier through a couple of moves attempted earlier, but Shenjie not able to do it. Now we have a VSC deployed, and as a result of, I believe that's Finn, who may have struggled there. Oh no, it's Freeware out of this race, excuse me.
Don't know what happened to the Avatari down in the Nouvelle Chicane. The car's already disappeared. But yeah, it's Freeware there out of this race. I think that might have been a freak incident, because I don't think he was racing anyone down there. I think he was on his own at that moment in time. But this VSC could be what Money asked for, if it can get him any closer to those guys up at the front, as well as stunting Alex Bedo. He's not going to be able to escape from Fraser and Shenjie as quickly as he'd like.
Yeah, and for those just tuning in, of course, you're watching MRL Club Division. It is, of course, the Misfits Racing League, and we are here for Round 7 Monaco racing action. We've already seen MRL EU around Monaco and Tier 2 and Tier 1 this week. Of course, we're racing live with you Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, with most Saturdays as well. Tomorrow, of course, MRL Endurance Series, and you can see there Alpha now being overtaken here, and there's been a little bit of a drop-off due to the VSC, but Fraser, an even bigger drop-off as a result of that damage he's carrying on that front right, and Shenjie showing a lot of pace right now. Clean Air able to bring himself very tight to the rear of that Mercedes. He made up a lot of time in a very short period. Of course, for those of you new to the stream, be sure to hit that follow button so you know when we're live racing next. Tomorrow, Monza, 100% distance racing action, damage on safety cars, the whole shebang, 18-minute qualifying for that, and that's going to begin at 5 p.m. CDT and 11 p.m. BST. Shenjie right now still hunting down Fraser for third, and it's been a great fight for these podium places right now. Remco van Putten has been locked in, as we've seen him do so through the course of the MRL racing action. Of course, he competes in the Tier 1 racing as well. Now it's Fraser Shenjie. See,
just getting past there.
you blink
through...
and you miss it. And there goes Fraser. He's decided to come in. It's time to get off those tires and get in for a fresh wing. We'll see what he gets onto here. Shenjie now into the podium positions. He started this race on pole.
Softs for the Mercedes as well as that front wing. Nigel as well has hopped onto another set of softs, interesting enough. So he's going to take them to the end. As well as Fraser here. 10 laps. Not too much of a tall order for them.
Yeah, now Shenjie's made it into third position ahead of Panpernik's back marker here. Of course, he had a disconnection issue causing his car to remain on circuit. The AI is currently set at a higher level than what you would normally see for default, but of course it is Monaco, and it has held up ZZ9 just a little bit outside of Shenjie, and Shenjie going to be happy about that.
Yeah, and Shenjie's finally free of Fraser's damaged Mercedes, and he can go and re-hunt down Alex Billow. The gap just under 3 seconds. He's already absolutely annihilating it in that Alfa Romeo. And I'm sure now Alex Billow is going to be a little bit more worried than he was a moment ago when Fraser was holding up Shenjie. Now the Alfa Romeo free to just go as fast as he humanly can. And look at him crush that time.
Yeah, he's in a very solid position here. 16-lap-old mediums, P5, less than 2 seconds the current gap to P4. And all those drivers ahead of him on much older rubber. He could have a lot more pace in this car by the end of this one. But, of course, we'll have to see if any of these drivers decide to go and blink to get onto some fresh compound tires. Of course, Fraser onto some fresh softs now. Nigel on some much fresher softs as well. We'll see if those guys have the pace to maybe catch up to this grid. We've seen it done before. We could see it again today.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one because if Fraser does start catching these guys, he's got a 12-second gap, and that's to TM's 7 right now. So it seems unlikely in the remaining 9 laps or so that we've got here that he will be able to catch up to the guys in front and make a pit stop worth it for the guys in the top 5. But the only person who might get hold of that information is ZZ9, if those two are communicating, obviously, being from the same team. But Shenjie is already within half a second of Alex Billow, despite being about 3 seconds down a couple of laps ago. Absolutely incredible from him right now as Domi gets past Panpernik through turn 1.
Things so intense at the front of this grid now as Shenjie's caught up with Alex here, and now we have a yellow flag in Sector 2, and that appears to be the other AlphaTauri. That's Finn. And it looks like it's the chicane that's taken him out of this race. And, of course, his car has been removed from circuit. And we now have 11 of the 16 drivers that began this race remaining here on the streets of Monte Carlo. And it's Shenjie in a very hard-fought battle for some serious points. And Alex Billow right now holding on to P2. Remco Van Putten in a league of his own right now, leading this race for Red Bull. 5.9 the current gap on this grid.
And these guys, you can't separate them right now. Shenjie, he caught him up, but obviously it's Monaco. You can't just use that raw pace to breeze past someone because it's so difficult to overtake, especially now we're on 22 lap or 23 lap old mediums for both of these drivers, and that means they've got reduced grip, so overtaking even more tricky than it would have been provided these guys were on fresh rubber. Another yellow flag. That's Renault. It's Nigel having problems through the chicane. The chicane at the tail end of this race proving very tricky for our drivers, it would seem.
Oh, this is just pure intensity and so much patience required here in Monaco. We've seen this is the 4th race this week now. So we've seen, 39 times 4 at this point. And the amount of patience required. And we saw patience really deliver for a lot of racers throughout this past week as well. In some serious scoring positions. Of course, you keep it clean, keep it neat and tidy here around Monaco. You're going to have one heck of a race come the end because everybody's so gung-ho You know, each and every one of these guys is fast, and they all want to pass one another. But Monaco is just, you know, it's a cage for a lot of these guys, and that's going to be Nigel. He's come in again, and he's out in front of these two fighting, and he's come out between first and second as a back marker now in that Renault, and he's currently sat in 8th position.
Yeah, you've got to hope that he's able to get out of the way of these two fighting for second place. And like you were saying about patience, Shenjie, he's caught up to Alex Biddo. Alex Biddo, 5 places up from where he started. So if you were to put a, you know, marker down on who is the faster driver around Monaco based on raw pace, you probably put it on Shenjie. But Shenjie has to be patient and choose his opportunity wisely if he is able to get past Alex Biddo, because we've seen it before where drivers, they're not patient enough, and that's when they think, I'm faster, I'm going to go past, and they just end up costing themselves, the driver ahead, huge amounts of places because they just aren't that critical.
Well, just because drivers are fast, right, it isn't a license to do what they wish. It doesn't mean they can just bash their way through the field. And that's why ghosting is disabled in these races. We're teaching these drivers that they need to slow down for cautions. They need to make sure they know exactly what's coming up ahead. And we've seen it previous where drivers completely ignore yellow flags. The next thing you know, they're T-boning a driver, taking themselves out of a race. And of course, lessons learned. But some drivers through this week, you know, really getting a lot of lessons here in Monaco. It's teaching these drivers patience. And this could be a very, very good lesson for these drivers to take with them through the race. Well, the races for the remainder of the season. You know, patience is a very, very strong force in racing.
Exactly, and we are seeing now Fraser up the inside of Tim and Sever. Those fresh softs finally getting him up places. He got past down into turn 5, a little bit unorthodox, but again, a possible overtaking spot, but it is still this fight for second place, where Shenjie still behind Alex Biddo, and he is right now being a great advocate for what we're saying up here, as we've got a safety car.
Oh my god, and a safety car on lap 34 to boot. And now we're going to have a sprint to the end here, and I think that you're going to be seeing very close to what the finishing lineup is going to be on this grid. I know one person who's going to be upset about this is going to be Nigel, because not only was he lapped by the leader when he came in for that most recent pit stop, but he's now been, you know, he's going to come out on this grid and unable to lap himself.
One person who's gonna potentially love this is Fraser. We saw him come in for a fresh wing and new soft tyres. Now he's gonna get bunched up to those guys that he lost out to via that pit stop. And instead of being on these hugely aged medium tyres, he's on those fresh softs that are gonna have a lot more grip and a lot more pace, but it's still Monaco, so whether he's going to be able to make those positions in what's going to be, like I said, a 3 or 4 lap maximum, probably even less than that, 2 or 3 laps.
I think this safety car is going to be coming in at the end of lap 36, and we may just have DRS down that start-finish straight come in the final lap, but it's going to be intense and tight through the end of this race, and this entire grid from first down to 7th is going to get bunched up once again. And I have to say, Tillman Sever has made out like a bandit here, because he has not been lapped that I am aware of. Of course, we'll take a look now at the gap to leader. He has not been lapped, so he will be on the freshest compound tires here, and it could be the dream strategy for the Haas squad as long as he's able to make up 25 seconds here inside of this next lap, as the safety car is about to cross over into lap 36. I think we're going to see it come in at the end here, because Tillman Sever will be the last car required to catch that cue.
Yeah, we hope that it doesn't stay up for too long. Only a few laps left in this race, and we don't want it to end. Also, it won't end under the safety car conditions, but we want to see these guys get the race restarted and having this dash to the finish. That can always make racing super exciting. You can see those drivers up at the front. Fraser trying to get as much warmth into these tyres as possible. He's definitely got the upper hand compared to his rivals ahead of him.
Yeah, Tillman Sever in prime position right now. Of course, Monaco in track position is something else entirely. Of course, he's going to have to make his way through some back markers. He has Pan Pernick, Nigel ahead, and although they will be required to let him through due to blue flag running, well, it's just going to be interesting to see how quickly he's able to get through and get up to that front running grid.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that they're going to have to get out of the way, it's also the fact that because they're in front of him, he's going to be further back on this restart, and that's going to put him probably in that 18, 19 last couple of corners, and that could cost him just enough time that's going to mean he's not going to get past one, maybe two drivers by the end of this race. So it's an interesting situation for him. Hopefully we get the call that safety car is coming in. If we were going to get it, I feel like it would have happened by now.
Well, I guess it might be waiting for Alpha and Domi to reach this grid because they are quite a ways away, but they have been lapped. Curious to see why the safety car is doing that. Of course, we're not driving it, and we don't have control of it. So if only we could just push a button and say, all right, time to come in. But we are going around again, and it looks like lap 37 will be the lap for which it decides to come in at the end.
Yep, and we're going to have just a couple of laps. As Nigel comes into the pits once again. What number pit stop is that for him? I believe that's the 6th pit stop of the evening.
7th.
7th.
Yeah, Nigel not having a good race around Monaco at all. 7 stops for him and 7 stops for Domi, and it just goes to show Monaco not for everybody, as Domi and Nigel have set themselves up as some of the fastest drivers in the Misfits Racing League, and they're showing that Monaco can even get to the best of us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tricky track, and one mistake here can cost you so much time, so many positions, and that can just ruin the rest of your race. And I do believe Domi was the cause of this safety car, so still in the points at the moment, just one for the Williams. And there we are, safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap. And we'll have 2 more laps here at the end of the Monaco Grand Prix here at MRL Club. Van Putten overtake. Everyone's battery fully charged up. Still waiting a little bit. There he goes. The Red Bull has unleashed this grid for a last couple of laps. And it's money. He's getting passed by Fraser, who's gone for a huge dive bomb into turn 1. That's not what you want to see. It's caused a huge stack of cars to just come running in the back. Whether he must have missed his braking point, because that is a hugely unacceptable move from him. No safety car to speak of, but up the front, the top 3 retaining positions.
Yeah, that was something that nobody ever wants to see in racing. I don't know what happened. Of course, the stewards will have his onboard later to look at. I imagine there's going to be a little bit of discussion post-race on that one. But of course, Remco Van Putten being hunted down by none other than Alex Bitto, and we've seen these two do the tango for months through Club Division, MRL Tier 1, the Endurance Series, you name it. These two always manage to find each other on circuit somehow, and it's usually them putting on some fireworks. But of course, Monaco keeping things a little bit suppressed this evening, but Shenjay less than half a second behind that Ferrari, and we've been seeing him hunt down Alex this entire race. He started this race on pole position. Now, as we cross into the final lap here around Monaco, lap 39, it's the Dutchman leading things for Red Bull.
Yeah, and you just saw Alex make a little bit of a mistake through turn 15, just clipped the wall, no damage on that Ferrari, but that's what's cost him and put Shenjay right back behind him, and that's all that Remco Van Putten needs to just keep it together now for this final lap. The gap there is plentiful to keep that Ferrari at bay, and we've said it before, he's a great defensive driver, and it's shown here this evening. Not only he hasn't really had to defend his pace around it, absolutely incredible for that Red Bull. another person who's had a stellar drive. Money behind his teammate, currently in 4th.
Alex Bido, he's missing an end plate. We saw him brush the wall coming out of turn 1, and now it's Shenjay with a good run through into the chicane, but he just might not be tight enough, and things are coming down to the final moments now as Remco Van Putten has pulled out a very solid gap between these two fighting, and it's costing them, but of course penalties could play a role for these racers come the line. Shenjay within 2/10 of Alex Bido now into the penultimate turn. It's Remco who is going to be crossing the line first here at the end of this one. In the Red Bull with the win is the Dutchman. Alex Bido crosses second. Shenjay jumps him as a result of penalties. And what a race it was for Money, who has finished this race in 4th position.
Oh, and Tiemann Severs retired from the race coming out of turn 12. He's had an issue, and he's retired after such a great race. He was 7 places up on his starting grid, and that's because Fraser, he's run into the back of him.
And that is the end of this race. So you have 5 finishers here in the front of this grid. And that's Remco Van Putten, Shenjay in 2nd, and Alex Bido in 3rd. With Money in 4th and ZZ9, the last driver to cross the line here on the current lap. Of course, ghosting is disabled. Yellow flags equals slow down in racing for those that are new to it. And we saw a lot of that today here in Monaco. So stewards going to have their hands full. Of course, Alpha there getting the game awarded driver of the day. But it was the Dutchman, Remco Van Putten, with the race win here. And you can see him there on the top step with Shenjay in 2nd and the Ferrari of Alex Bido there in 3rd. What a race from those 3. Such a dynamic race it was, of course. Let's take a look at how this race finished. It's Remco Van Putten with the win, Shenjay in 2nd, Alex Bido for the top 3, and Money from 6th to 4th in the Alfa Romeo with a great race from him. ZZ9 there from 4th to 5th, and it's Fraser in 6th, not finishing this one. He retired there at the end, but of course he will be classified as it was on the last lap, as will Tiemann Severs, Nigel, Domi, and anyone who may have been caught up in that. But what a unique race it was. Of course, we started here with 16 racers. Only, well, technically speaking, 10 finished, but we'll have to take a look at that. Of course, you can see the race director here. All of the incidents. What an amazing drive. What an amazing race, and a very dynamic race. Of course, Unicorn, what are your closing remarks?
Yeah, it's just another one of these races at Monaco. It's just absolutely crazy. Again, down to the wire, that final safety car really, changing this race, making it so that it was sort of a last lap moment for everyone. Shenjay beating Alex Bido out on penalties there. Whether that would have been different if Alex Bido hadn't picked up that 3-second on the penultimate lap, we will never know because, well, my game's crashed, so I can't actually see what's happened here, but a great race from Remco Van Putten. Excellent stuff from him. Money as well. He had an excellent race as well. Unfortunate what happened on the final lap with those below the top 4.
Yes,
but overall,
for sure.
A great race.
Yeah. Now, one thing to talk about is, of course, the MRL Endurance Series before we close things off, and what a great race it was, and thank you so much for commentating with me, as always, everybody. This has been Unicorn joining me. My name is Strifium, and tomorrow, Unicorn and I will be back at it again for a 100% distance endeavor. It's going to be the MRL Endurance Series going to the iconic Temple of Speed. That's right, it's the Italian Grand Prix, it's Monza, and perhaps you'll be able to see your Ferraris win over there in Italy, at least on one race. We'll have to see how they do in tomorrow's race, but that is going to be taking place at 5 p.m. CDT. That's 11 p.m. BST. We thank you all for watching us. Of course, if you're new to the streams, we do this regularly Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and most Saturdays with the Endurance Series. We have 4 full-blown grids for you guys to watch. The EU grid on Tuesdays, tiers 2 and 1 on Thursdays, and of course what you've just seen here, the club division around Monaco on Fridays. Of course, next week is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. It's Baku. And, well, Monaco has had these guys in a cage, and Baku kind of just makes the cage just a little bit bigger. Still a cage regardless, and we hope to see these guys do battle around there, and we hope you enjoyed the racing action. We're going to jump on over and raid. But before we do, of course, enjoy our closing messages. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.